Get even more savings this holiday season by becoming a Milo's Rewards member. Don't miss new member deals dropping every week, like $15 off a purchase of $50 or more on select Bounty, Charmin, and Puffs paper products. Plus, get free standard shipping with Silver Key status. Just one more way Lowe's is here to help you shop, save, and enjoy the holidays. Join for free today. Milo's Rewards program subject to terms and conditions. Visit Lowe's.com/terms for details. Subject to change. Exclusions and more terms apply. Visit Lowe's.com/shipping terms for details.
The early part of the 1990s were marked with war, recession, and a disaffected youth in search of a voice. By the midpoint, however, things were looking different. Things were looking up. Things were looking brighter. It's as if we'd went from a dark brown to a golden yellow hue in the crayon box of life. America had just elected its youngest president since John F. Kennedy. And regardless of your politics, if you were a certain age, it mattered that there was somebody young and vibrant sitting in a chair of power. It's almost as if what we were trying to put out in the universe in the early part of the decade actually got through. Had we made a difference? Were things going to be better for us than they were for the previous generation? Generation X had it in the palm of their hands, it felt. We could even see this in the pop culture landscape. There was new music and new sound emerging. Whether you were interested in R&B or you were interested in hip hop, you had Tupac, you had Biggie, you had new things happening, bubbling up. Now, rock and roll took a hit. Make no mistake, rock and roll took a big hit. It wasn't as though they were even in the throes of a midlife crisis. It seemed like the record industry's misuse of the term alternative, thrusting that label on anything with a 3, 4, 5-piece, rock and roll type sound, that it became absolutely meaningless. It became hopeless. And as a result, it looked like we were going to get, buckets of Bush and bands like Candlebox, for the rest of time. It really was bleak. I'm sorry if you like those bands, but they just represent that thing to me, that thing that, we had this great thing in rock and roll going on in the early part of the decades where it was searching for, rock and roll was searching, the people that made rock and roll were searching for inspiration in the past. And they were looking on the fringes with punk and new wave and really cool guitar sounds. We saw a lot of new things happening. And then bands started getting signed and they started just mimicking. They started just doing what everyone else was doing. And that's not exciting. That's not new. That's ugly. So in a way, this optimism that was happening wasn't being channeled in the rock and roll world. Sure, there were bands that were doing it, but they were indie bands. And indie bands don't matter. But they do on this podcast. Because our indie band, fresh off the heels of the masterpiece that was Crooked Rain, with a California rock and roll sound, moving far away from the lo-fi, haphazard sound of Slanted and Enchanted, went back to the studio to make another record. And on April 11th, 1995, we got to hear the results of optimism. We got to hear the results of what it sounds like to swing for the fences and make a record that is big and bold and beautiful. we got to hear the fruits of their labor. And the only thing we could do was turn it up, scratch our heads, and say, wowie zowie. Welcome to Meeting Malcolmus, a Pavement podcast. Hey, it's JD here, back for another week of hitchhiking through the back roads of the catalog of seminal indie rock band Pavement, with the hopes that I'll be dropped off somewhere near a conclusion, somewhere near an answer, and maybe even get the chance to meet Malcolmus. So, what you doing? I'm getting ready to talk about We Dance, but before I do that, I want to thank everybody for scrambling and downloading the fuck out of that special episode I released yesterday with the playlist on it. Sorry if I didn't get your tracks in time to include them, but that's how it works sometimes when you're on a schedule. So there's that. I can tell you that I'm working with a new microphone today. I made a change, so if it sounds a little bit different, it should sound better. But right now I'm working without a windscreen. It's coming in the mail tomorrow, and there may be a little bit more breathiness and plosive sounding JD than you're used to, and I apologize for that in advance. So there's that. There may also be the sounds of Rugrats in the background as my children are home on this whole COVID journey that we are facing. How are you doing? How are you coping? Send me an email, jd@meetingmalcolmus.com. I want to know that you're all well, safe, taken care of. It looks like Primavera has made an announcement, and that announcement is that there'll be another announcement because they haven't made a fucking decision. Let's call a spade here. It's going to be canceled or postponed at the very least. There's no way in hell you can organize that many bands and get them together unless you're a Coachella, a brand that big. But we shall see. Time will tell. And I have basically decided at this point that I will not be going. It just doesn't make sense to deal with plane tickets and things like that at this point. This is why I wish Primavera would just say, this is the date, this is what's happening, or this isn't what's happening. But I can't be bothered, fucking around. My fingers are just crossed that we get some more Pavement live later on, and we'll go from there. So there's that. Now, before we go any further, what we always do when we start a new record is we get on the horn with Bobby from Atlanta and we talk about artwork. So what do you say we do that? Talk to him about the Wowie Zowie artwork that is pretty spectacular. I feel guilty because I have Slanted and I have Crooked Rain framed, in a really tasteful, artistic manner in the hallway of my house. But I don't have the other three records, and it feels like I'm not a completist. By the way, for you completists out there, thank you so much for being a completist. And you know what that means. It means that you subscribe to the bonus feed. And earlier this week, we did, I did a track by track outline of traditional techniques. So I veered away from the normal content to release that. That came out on Monday. If you're interested in that, it's $3 a month. You don't have to stay on board. If you want to listen to that episode and the stuff that's there, pay the $3, and then I think you get access to it, and then you can cancel. I think. I don't know. Or you could just stay on for $3 a month. You could do that too. My producer's tapping the glass right now saying, get on with the Bobby from Atlanta bit. So I'll do that, and we'll go from there. All right. This is my call with Bobby from Atlanta, and we're going to talk about artwork.
Yeah.
So you talked to our friend again, Mark.
Yeah, talked to Mark. He'd been traveling a bit, so I emailed Mark and said, "Hey, it's time. We're gonna do Wowie Zowie, and I need your insight because you're one of the few people that know what's going on in the brain of Stephen Malcolmus." Circa what year is this? I don't even know.
95.
95. Yeah. So. He gave me some insight. He got back to me after I had been researching a little bit already. But as usual, he had insight that I was unaware of. There are things that I couldn't find on the internet because I think they were just in his head. And a part of his email and phone calling and, the process of developing an album on the graphic end of things.
That's so cool.
It's so cool. We lucked out as a podcast to have that connection. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool to know somebody that knows these things, along with Spiral and those folks too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
So yeah.
So take me through it.
So let's see. I'll tell you what I learned from Esquire magazine online, first of all, which was a very good, when you're researching album artwork and you Google it, it's very convenient that there's an article about that album artwork on a proper magazine website. So I had it a little easier this go around. So the artist, there's two elements, right? So there's cartoon bubbles that say Pavement and Wowie Zowie.
Right.
And so that we can think of that as kind of like an overlay. And then the background behind it is a painting, right? And that's all there is. So the background painting is the key, really, I guess. And interestingly enough, I learned through Esquire about the painting, and then Mark O came through and told me about the bubbles and the lettering. Just, perfect timing.
Oh man.
So the background painting is done by, I believe he refers to himself as a New York City artist. The guy's name is Steve Keene. And cool enough, he goes back with Stephen and friends, including Berman, and I guess Bob, back to the University of Virginia. There
really?
was so this artist working in New York and knows these guys from WTJU radio in Charlottesville, Virginia, which is probably 6 or 7 years back or something like that. He was a couple of years older than these guys. So he was, maybe he was 3 or 4 years older than Steven. But he remembers going back and he remembers seeing them perform in some of their cursory kind of, early jam sessions. And he was kind of instantly attracted to it. And he said in the article that he felt like he was a part of their tribe, which I thought was kind of funny.
That's awesome.
Like-minded college students, they're kind of, anybody that's gone through college knows that there's little pockets of people, groups. And I guess so he would be associated in that pocket of social interaction with Stephen.
That's right. You just meet people and click sometimes. It's like you speak shorthand,
Yeah, you're trying, I guess when you show up as a freshman in college, you have your antenna up and you're kind of looking around trying to figure out who's my tribe, right? And so anyway, Steve Keen kind of clued into Steven, and I guess Berman too, because he ended up doing an album cover. I think it was the Arizona record for Silver Jews was done by Steve Keen also.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and Apples in Stereo.
Really?
Also, yeah. So he's kind of prolific is the word. This guy, so he set out, I guess, with the intention of being an artist full time, which is as I know, I do artwork on the side. I do graphic design to make actual money. And but this guy had the intention, I believe, of being just a fine artist. And he said that, quoting this Esquire article, I've sold or given away at this point over 300,000 paintings.
300,000?
I don't 300,000.
Jesus Christ.
So, okay, so this guy, what he does is, he was dubbed, what magazine was this? Time magazine dubs him in 1997 as the assembly line Picasso. So what he does is really fascinating to learn about this guy, being interested in art myself. So there's some YouTube videos. If you YouTube Steve Keen, you can see he'll set up not necessarily canvas. It could be just pieces of plywood or whatever. He has paper. He'll set up a row, and he'll do it sometimes as an exhibition where he's doing it live. In fact, Mark O told me that he remembers seeing Steve Keen at a Pavement concert or a Malcolm X concert at some point, where he was doing his artwork during the opening band. So he would actually be, in public spaces, and he would have a row of between, I'll say, 5 and 30 canvases.
Holy,
and they're in a linear fashion, right? And so he's got, a lot of times he'll do an album cover. So he'll take like whatever it may be, like the Talking Heads or something like that. He'll take a vinyl album cover, and he'll paint that album cover, and he'll do it 25 times in a row. And each one's slightly different, right? So it was just fascinating. I've never seen anything like that. It's almost like
bonkers.
It's almost like a printing press, duplicating artwork, but it's all done by hand. And then he would either give them away, or he'd sell them for $5, or he'd sell them for, if it's a 1 of 3 series, and maybe he'd sell them for like $50 each. But the intention was that I'm just going to do this because I enjoy doing it, and I'm going to make a little bit of money doing it, and I want everybody in New York City to have one of these, and they're going to pay me $5 per painting or whatever it may be. So it's a very unique approach to art.
Yeah, I haven't heard of anything like that.
I've never heard of anything like it. And so anyway, Stephen knew him and knows him, and said, we've got some, got an album coming. We do a painting for me. Or maybe it's a little unclear whether or not Stephen just said, I like this series, can we use it for an album? Or if he actually, I think what happened though is he commissioned it. So it said in this article that, and I found this interesting too, that in the 90s, there is sort of a fascination with the Arabic culture, Middle Eastern culture. And then here it said people were eating falafels like crazy back then. So that was funny. There's, culture goes through these things where there's like a fascination with Chinese food, and then there's, anyway, there's a hot moment in the 90s where Middle Eastern culture was considered, really unique and interesting to people. So I think basically Steve said, well, let's he saw this article in Life magazine called in 1972, actually, which goes back a ways, but it was a 1972 Life magazine titled "The Arab World," and it has lots of photography of life in that area. And so there's one photograph in that Life magazine where it's two Arab women kind of sitting cross-legged on the ground, I guess. And there's a goat in the picture just, walking by.
Just chilling out, being a goat.
Yeah,
you know?
just being a goat.
That's right.
And and so anyway, Steve Keen finds this image and he thinks, well, this is really strange and interesting looking. So he does, from what I can tell, he does his typical thing where he maybe put 20, I think he said maybe 15 or 20 or 30 different versions of the same photograph painted on all these pieces of board or paper. And so he shows them to Stephen and he says, here's 30 versions of this Arab lifestyle painting in blue and gray, and it, to me, it looks like I think of like Chewbacca sitting, like if Chewbacca were sitting cross-legged on the ground or something. That's what it looks like to me. I don't know. I mean, surely no one other than Marco and Steve Keen knew what this was,
right?
Because it's not graphically.
No, it's not clear. No, and it looks like a dog, not a goat, right? Like it looks like some sort of,
sure, yeah, it looks like a poodle, a poodle at Chewbacca and his wife and their poodle. Right? So anyway, Steven says, "Oh, this one's the one," And he picks out one out of 30, and he says, "We're going to do this one." And so he tells Marco, like, "This is the album cover," but. All right, and then here's where Mark O comes into the equation, and he tells me this insight, which, of course, no one knows except me and Mark O. But there's this album cover. I guess there's some people that may know this just intuitively. There's a band in 1972, which is crazy because that is a weird coincidence. This band is called Kangaroo.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And they put out an album in 1972 called Kangaroo. And it says, or actually the album is called Guru Guru. And anyway, the big lettering on the top of the album says Kangaroo, and it's in these bubble letters, right?
Yeah.
And there's a picture of a kangaroo and a baby in its pouch, and there's two bubbles coming off of the kangaroo, like cartoon bubbles, and one of them says Kanga Kanga, and then the other one, the baby, saying Guru Guru. It's like the mom and baby talking to each other in cartoon bubbles. And so Steven says, I want this painting of the Arab Sasquatches for the cover, but I want the kangaroo cartoon bubbles on top of it. And we'll put the album title in one of the bubbles, and then it'll say, so it's a question and response, and it says Pavement ? From Chewbacca. And then the goat says, Wowie Zowie. And that's it. There you are. So that's kind of it's a great story, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of components there, right?
There's a lot of, every single one of these album covers is like deeper and weirder than you would expect.
Yeah.
I'd say.
Yeah. Nothing is straightforward with this band.
No. And it's such an obscure, isn't that weird though, that the Kangaroo album is 1972 and the Life magazine cover of the Arab World is 1972. I don't know how that's possible, but
what makes it even more weird is it's not like in 1995 you could go to the internet and just type in cool things from 1972. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like now you could do that and you could maybe see these two things. Yes, it would be immensely difficult. You just have to have that sort of recall that you've seen these things somewhere before.
Yeah. So two other little fascinating anecdotes. Mark tells me that Stephen's grandmother, or maybe great-grandmother, also has artwork in the gatefold of that album.
Okay.
And it's some sort of like kind of monotone, like gold and black or cream and black graphic. And I don't have it, and I tried to find it, and I can't find it online. But anyway, Stephen's great-grandmother or grandmother is featured in there also. And then there's one other thing. What was it? Gosh, there's another little.
The Mad Magazine.
When they reissued its Sordid Sentinels, right? The reissue 20 years later, I think it was. They called up Steve Keen and they said, "Hey, you," or Matador Records called up Steve Keen and said, "Hey, you did this artwork. We were thinking about promoting the reissue. Would you be interested in doing some new art to kind of advertise this thing?" And he said, "Yeah, sure." And so he, of course, like he sent in a pile of artwork that he had done in short order, and they kind of worked through that and figured out what they wanted to do. And they used the back of Mad Magazine has this folding graphic, which I'm sure you remember, right?
Oh yeah.
Al Jaffe, it says here, maybe that was the person who did the folding graphic on the backs of those. But anyway, you fold it twice and the image turns into a more narrow vertical image, and the pieces from the left and right come together to create some different image.
Yes.
And so they created Steve created a poster. He actually created multiple posters, and they just picked the one they liked the best.
Surprise, he did multiples.
He did. Like, yeah, just a pile of them, and quickly, probably all within 2 or 3 weeks or something. But they turned this one into, I think when it's folded out, it's like a pizza and burger restaurant. And when you fold it together, it becomes a church, and it says "Rest in Peace" is the message if you fold it together, like the Mad Magazine. So it was very, off the wall thing. And Mark, the other thing I want to mention too is that Steve Keen did all this work for the album back in the day. And obviously Pavement had a big success with Crooked Rain. And so this album was highly anticipated by the world. And he was at a bus stop, and somebody had a Rolling Stone magazine, and Pavement had bought the back cover ad of Rolling Stone, which is just huge,
right,
for their new album advertisement. And so that was the first time that Steve ever saw his artwork was on the back of Rolling Stone at a bus stop.
Oh, that's cool.
And some kid had a Rolling Stone magazine, was flipping through it. He's like, "Oh my God." He saw it on the back of the cover.
Oh man. Yeah, that is.
Yeah. So interesting research project.
The other thing that stands out for me is the back cover of the disc. Or was it on the inner gatefold? Gosh, it had pictures of the bands. I just recall there's the one picture with Bob. He's in the bathtub with soap suds on his hair. It's like telling you who the members of the band are. But as a Canadian, the one of Spiral Stairs, he's sitting eating something, I don't know, but he's drinking a bottle of beer. And the bottle of beer is a brand of beer called Moosehead, which is an independent brewery out of Nova Scotia. It's one of the last independent breweries in, other than craft breweries. It's a pretty big scale independent brewery on the east coast of Canada. So I wonder where that picture was taken, But you're saying you know Moosehead. So maybe...
Yeah, I remember Moosehead used to be popular. I'm in the southeast United States. And
that's wacky that they had penetration down there.
What's that?
I said that's wacky that they had penetration down there then. Wow.
I think it was widespread because we'd go to the grocery store or the liquor store, wherever, parents, and not that my parents normally took me to the liquor store. But, anyway, I'd occasionally see the beer section, and, kids are attracted to graphics. And I remember the Moosehead beer label.
Huh.
It was everywhere.
Wow.
Everywhere in the 80s.
Well, if you're...
Early 90s.
Yeah, I would say early 90s for sure. That was my beer in my first year university.
Yeah.
That's what I drank. So I don't know if you're listening to this and you were a Moosehead drinker, shoot me an email, jd@meetingmalcolmus.com.
Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, I'm going to go open a beer. Dude, I got to thank you so much.
It's not noon yet, JD.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not noon yet.
It's noon somewhere. Isn't that what they say? No. Yeah. Hey, listen. Thanks so much for doing this, as always.
That's so fun. I really enjoyed it.
All right, cool. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks, JD.
All right.
There is no castration fear. In a chair, you will be with me. We'll dance, we'll dance. We'll dance, we'll dance, but no one will dance with us in this zany town. Chim, 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 sing a song of praise for your elders. They're in the back. Pick out some Brazilian nuts for your engagement. Check that expiration date, man. It's later than you think. You can't enjoy yourself, I can't enjoy myself. You can't enjoy yourself, I can't enjoy myself. Move that swing and watch it break straight like an arc. But I won't be there to leave you. Cause I don't have a clue anymore. Maybe we could dance. Maybe we could dance. Maybe we could dance together, 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 together. First time you see, and then you'll be 5 times forever. And you never get lost.
Wowie zowie. Isn't that so good? I'm not even high over here, and that is great. Man. Yeah, that song has a tough gig, because it, traditionally speaking, when you sequence a record, oftentimes the lead-off track is going to set the tone for the record. It's going to give you a sense of what's to come. But how do you do that on a record like Wowie Zowie? I mean, a record that literally traverses the spectrum as far as sounds go and songs go. It really is all over the place. You've got pedal steel guitar, you've got piano, you've got whacked out synthesizer sounds, you've got, punk guitar, you've got snarling vocals, you've got beautiful vocals, you've got it's all over the place. It's all over the map. And to choose a song that sort of says, hey, this is what you're in for is a chore. And I think We Dance is a great choice because it does have that sort of, green tinted hue, like this marijuana sort of aesthetic to it. And, the record is a stonery record, right? I mean, Stephen called it his pot record at one point. I'm paraphrasing. I think the actual quote was he was smoking a lot of pot around this time, and they all sounded like hits to him, which is just fantastic. I mean, the world was expecting hits in the vein of Cut Your Hair or Gold Sounds, and instead they get Father to a Sister of Thought or We Dance or Rattled by the Rush, which I still stand behind the fact that I think is a hit single with the right set of ears. Now this song, does anybody else listen with good headphones? Or even, maybe it's even bad headphones. I don't know. I have some pretty good headphones. And the whole beginning part, there is this rushing water sound in the left channel. And I don't know if it's, I've just never noticed it before. I'm just listening with a different set of ears today. I don't know. But it really stuck out. It really stuck out the last few listens. And I don't know what it is. And I'm hard of hearing in my left ear. So I hadn't really noticed it before. I guess I was just paying more close attention today. And I really noticed that. As far as lyrics go, I love this song. I love in this zany town, and then Chim Chim, that piece. Don't know what it's about. You got a beat on it? Send me an email, jd@meetingmalcolmist.com. I'd love to hear from you. Musically, it's pretty simple, straightforward. You've got that piano, you've got a strumming guitar, you've got a beautiful vocal. And then that fade out at the end is unnaturally long. It's the kind of fade out that you lean into as it's fading out. You want to hear what he's saying. There's a song by Bell and Sebastian called The Boy with the Arab Strap. And it fades out in a similar way, like vocally, that you're leaning in to try and hear exactly what he's talking about. Maybe it'll give you a clue. Maybe it'll tip you off. Unlock the whole song. Not the case. Not the case, though. So there's that. Okay, so I just want to wrap up by sending out some thank yous to those of you who are working in the face of this crisis to help keep the rest of us at home. I'm going to do my part. I'm going to stay in. I was in Florida last week, and I'm not from Florida, so I'm supposed to keep myself quarantined for 2 weeks, and I'll do that. And I'll do my part. That's what I do. I do my part. I think we should try and have a watching party for Slow Century. If you're in, tweet me, Facebook me, and we should get that going. I can get a link and we can all watch it together like a family, On that note, I'll bid you adieu and talk to you next time. Be well. Meeting Malcolmus, a Pavement podcast, is a weekly affair. Connect with JD at jd@meetingmalcolmus.com. Please support the pod by rating, reviewing, or sponsoring us at meetingmalcolmus.com. And hey, I'm social. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook at Meeting Malcolmus.